Thank you, Dr. Aditi and AIOC for bringing up this important instruction course. So what I would be covering is chemical injury, the diagnosis, classification, and the medical management. I am Dr. Abhishek Dave. So there are very few ophthalmic emergencies, and ocular chemical injury is one of the true ophthalmic emergencies because it can cause extensive damage to the ocular surface epithelium, the cornea, and the anterior segment. It is a potential for visual impairment and also a threat to the structural integrity of the eye. So what are the common agents which are causing this chemical injury? Alkali are the most common and the most dreaded agents. These are lipophilic. They penetrate the tissues more rapidly than acids. They saponify the fatty acids of cell membranes, penetrate the corneal stroma, and destroy the proteoglycan ground substance and collagen. The damaged tissue also secrete proteolytic enzymes, and thus it's a vicious cycle which keeps causing the destruction to happen unless the offending agent is removed. The acids are generally less harmful and less common than alkalis, though they are they can be equally harmful to the ocular surface. They denature and precipitates the protein in the tissue. The coagulated protein acts as a barrier to prevent further penetration. An exception would be hydrofluoric acid, which is very rapidly penetrating. So what are the common agents which are causing these alkali and acid injuries? So we'll be covering a few which are more common. These would be sulfuric acid, which we commonly see with patients coming, car mechanics coming in after a battery blast, and you would see sulfuric acid injuries. Another common one would be hydrochloric acid because that is used as a toilet cleaner in many of the homes. So children and adults also come with HCl being splashed into the eye. Another common one, which is very, very common in our Indian population, could be calcium hydroxide or lime. The common reasons would be an injury with cement, plaster, or whitewash agents. But also, what is very common and specific to Indian population is also very common would be tuna injury, and you would see many people eating tobacco who mix tuna in their tobacco, and children would be playing with these gooey tubes, and they open up and injure the eyes. So very common and a very dreaded agent. So basic pathophysiology would be a necrosis of the corneal and the conjunctival epithelium, a disruption and occlusion of the limbal vasculature. Also, a loss of limbal stem cells is seen, leading to conjunctivalization and vascularization of the cornea. Loss of epithelium causes PEDs and sterile corneal ulcers. So the diagnosis is mainly based on history, and there would be 4 important points in history which have to be asked. When the injury occurred, whether the patient rinsed the eyes afterwards and for how long, the type of chemical that splashed the eye to make out whether it was an acid or alkali, and the mechanism injury, whether the chemical was under a high pressure to know whether there could be a damage to the coats of the eye as well. So before coming to the classification or the examination, first step which is to be done in a chemical injury patient is to wash the eye. So once the patient comes up into your OPD, the first thing which you have to do is to irrigate the ocular surface before making the patient sit on the slit lamp. So immediate copious irrigation with any agent, whether it be BSS, normal saline, or ringalactid. In fact, there have been various studies comparing these agents, but ultimately the consensus is washing is important, the agent is not so important. In fact, if the person is at home, even tap water is good enough to wash the eye for at least half an hour with about 2 to 3 liters of these solutions. You can also instill anesthetic eye drops so that the patient cooperates more for the wash. Always avert the upper eyelid and pull the lower fornix down to wash the chemical agents off from these fornices as well. Then coming to the evaluation, once the pH is below is in the range of 7 to 7.2, you will start the examination. If the pH is still less than 7 or more than 7.2, which you can check with simple pH strips, which you can keep in your OPD. If the pH is below or more, you have to still irrigate before coming on to the examination. So the aim of examination would be to see the extent and the depth of injury. So you see that with the involvement of the cornea, conjunctiva, and limbus. We'll be coming to that, how to see that. Do a fluorescent staining of the ocular surface to see the amount of epithelial damage. Furnaces should always be checked with double version of the upper lid for any particulate matter which could be still there, and also to evaluate the amount of epithelial damage in the furnaces also. Always check the IOP, especially if the patient is coming after a few days, because alkali injuries are known to cause raise of IOP. So you can do that digitally if the epithelium is damaged and you can't do an applanation tension. Coming to the classification system, one of the first system which was introduced was Roper Hall classification system in early 1960s. It was based on two things, where on the basis of corneal clarity and on the basis of limbal ischemia. So whether the cornea was hazy, whether the iris could be seen, or there was a total haziness, the grades were divided into 1 to 4. And also if there was no limbal ischemia or less than one third to half and greater than half, uh, these eyes were divided into 4 grades. But there were several shortcomings to the Roper Hall classification system. First of all, they were very broad categories. So a grade 4 burn would include anything from 50 to 100% of limbal ischemia. So now with good stem cell transplantation, we know that even if there is 1 to 2 clot of limbus available, the prognosis is favorable as compared to a total limbal ischemia. They had given a lot of importance to corneal haze, but now we know that rapid changes in corneal clarity are known to occur over days, and that is not a very reliable sign. Also, in eyes with total limbal ischemia, total limbal loss of epithelium as well as a corneal epithelial loss, the presence of any survival conjunctival epithelium is a favorable prognostic indicator, because even if the conjunctival epithelium grows onto the cornea, it's better than no epithelium at all. Also, limbal ischemia may not always be associated with limbal stem cell loss, because ischemia may be transient and it may become better over 2 to 3 days of medical therapy. Also, classification system should be more dynamic. So thus came the Duas classification, which was a much shorter category. So there were 6 categories which were made. And also, rather than putting more stress on cornea, the stress was more on conjunctival involvement and the limbal involvement. So if there was a limbal involvement of less than 3 clockers, it was put in grade 2, and 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, and up to 12 clockers, like that, grade 6 were divided. Also, conjunctival epithelial involvement, if less than 30%, or whether it was 30 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100, or total conjunctival involvement. Important thing to note is, while calculating the percentage of conjunctival involvement, only involvement of the bulbar conjunctiva and the farnicial conjunctiva is important. You don't really put stress on tarsal conjunctiva. Even if it's intact, it doesn't have much importance. So how do you calculate the amount of conjunctival epithelial involvement? The bulbar conjunctiva is divided into 4 parts of 1/6 each, and the farnicial into 1/6 each. So you total them up and come out with the percentage of conjunctival involvement. So these are some examples of grade 1 to 6 injuries. So this was a grade 1 injury. This was an acid splash into the eye. So though it looks a bit dreaded, there's a large epithelial defect, but if you see, the conjunctiva is quite healthy. There's no conjunctival epithelial defect. Even the limbal stem cells, if you can see, are quite healthy, though there's bogginess, chemosis of the conjunctiva. But this injury healed within a week's time, only with lubricants and antibiotic drug. Now, this is a grade 3 injury. This was an alkali injury, where you can see there's about a 3 to 6 clockers of limbal involvement, limbal damage. So it comes into grade 3 injury thus. Though if you see, the corneal epithelium is quite healthy over this area, but that is not of much importance. Now, this is a grade 6 injury, a Chuna injury, a child with Chuna injury. So there's a total epithelial surfing over the cornea, as well as the conjunctiva and the fornices, as well as a limbal ischemia, which is almost about 100%. So this will have a much graver prognosis and needs a much more intensive management than the upper foot pictures. So the management principle is basically divided into whether you have mild injury or a moderate to severe injury. So we'll be coming to that. The aims of management would be promote epithelialization as early as possible. Any epithelium is okay, whether it's conjunctival epithelium or corneal epithelium. But as long as the cornea remains bare, it's a threat to the integrity of the eye, reduction of inflammation, prevention of progressive corneal melt, and prevention of cicatricial complication. So to start with broad spectrum antibiotics, they are only given as a prophylaxis for epithelial defect. So don't put too toxic antibiotics and too frequently. So 3 to 4 times chloramphenicol or a moxifloxacin would suffice if it's a clean injury. But if it's an unclean injury, there's a lot of debris, lot of muck lying over the cornea, you can give fortified antibiotics also. Coming to the next category would be preservative-free lubricants. So frequent installation of CMC or HPMC to promote reepithelialization. I'll just take 2 minutes. So topical corticosteroids are the mainstay of medical treatment, and they have to be given more frequently, 1 to 2 hourly, on grade 3 to 6 injuries. They suppress the inflammation and inhibit collagenases, and thus promotes epithelial healing. They should be tapered off quickly because prolonged use can suppress collagen production and keratinocyte migration, thus leading to stromal necrosis. Coming to sodium ascorbate, any injection of ciliary body by chemical causes a drop in aqueous ascorbate level. Thus, a 10% topical drop, which is more potent than oral supplementation, is recommended in all grade 3 to 6 chemical injuries. So orally also important thing to remember is that you have to give 2 tablets 4 times in a day, not just 1 or 2 tablets in a day. So 1000 milligram 4 times in a day. An injection you can get as a 500 milligram ampule. You dilute it 1:5 time to get a 10% solution. Sodium citrate is also important to reduce the ocular surface inflammation, and it also inhibits the collagenases. A 10% topical solution which can be made by diluting 1:4 these injection which is available, which is about 47%.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we sum it up in next 30 seconds?
Yeah. Just 2 more slides.
Thank you, sir.
So coming to topical biological fluids like autologous serum, which is more commonly and readily available, so 20 to 50% can be used. The rare ones would be umbilical cord serum, autologous platelet-rich plasma. Again, they have been shown in many studies to be more potent than also amniotic membrane transplant or even as efficacious, but the availability is not so easy. Other experimental agents I would rather skip, and IOP lowering agent should be used whenever needed. Oral doxycycline again should be started because it promotes epithelial healing and it retards any corneal ulcer. So the take-home points would be ocular chemical injury is a sight-threatening emergency. The management should start even before detailed examination. Patient should be assessed daily in cases of severe injury. And topical steroid and lubricants till date would form the mainstay of treatment until we come up with something more promising in larger randomized controlled trials. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much for your kind attention, and sorry for exceeding the time.